everyone, and welcome to the last week of class, week 10. We're going to finish up the course by talking about interdepartmental cooperation, professional associations, and continuing education for those that work with adults. Now, these are all things that can facilitate your own work and interests within the profession, create networking opportunities, and help you to continually improve your skills as a librarian. No man is an island. Have you heard that saying? Well, it's from a poem by the British poet John Donne. And, here are the first few lines. No man is an island, and it's higher of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And that's just the first part. And this can definitely be true of libraries. Adult services, children's, teen, media, circulation admin, history centers, business centers, tech services, and many more kind of departments that larger systems have, let alone branches, all count as this. So all of those things make up a library. And you all work together to create a space and offer resources and services to the public. So each library and branch will have a corporate culture based off of who's in charge and the people that make up that department or place. Now, departments can and do have microcultures that affect everything from the materials that they buy to programs that they offer to the way that the staff interact with patrons. Now, because of these microcultures and the differing nature of work, say adult versus youth, those can all be barriers to cooperation. Another one is department distance. Now, I know just in my location we have a large building. They are all the way across the building, and I can literally go weeks without walking into that department, and sometimes not even seeing the youth librarians. Now, one of the other potential barriers is competition for resources. Libraries only have so much money, and this can engender hard feelings, or at least a spirit of competition rather than cooperation. So what do I mean by cooperation? In this instance, I'm talking about coordinating efforts on things that cross departments to reach each other's user base. Now, for those of us that already work in libraries, we could probably make a laundry list of patrons that only ever visit one department. Now, do they know what other departments have that might interest them? Do you know? What are some ways that departments can educate each other and potentially help each other educate or better serve your patrons? Now, for those of you geared towards or already working in academic libraries, you are not excluded from any of this. Think of all the different desks, subject areas, and even some libraries, I know academic libraries have different libraries around campus. So all these examples should translate to you in some way or the other. Now, one potentially easy thing to do is to educate each other about your resources that is commonly used, like databases or physical materials, and you can do it during meetings. After all, each department generally has a regularly scheduled meeting, say, monthly or whenever. I know some that do it bi-monthly. Now, inviting someone from another department, say a children's library, into the adult meeting, and then have them tell you about resources available to, say, teachers, who, remember, are adults, or vice versa. Have an adult librarian teach the youth department about the test tutors, or online resources that might be housed in an adult but applicable to teachers or teens. Other examples are, the other departments in the library, say local history centers, genealogy departments, business sources, etc. It's kind of actually especially useful if libraries have a specialized area and tend to automatically send people there for an answer. Learning about what the whole library has, resource-wise and service-wise, and then having the resident experts teach it can only make staff feel more comfortable and actually be more knowledgeable and helpful to patrons. Another area is collection development. Libraries own a lot of things, and materials are generally carefully considered and tend to be under the auspice of a particular department, either because of where it's placed on the website or in physical in physical means it's placed in a certain department. Now there are some purchases, especially large ones like databases, that should involve a conversation between different departments. Um, I have seen or found databases on my own library site that would be incredibly useful to many of my adult patrons, but I only learned that we had it 6 months after acquisitions because it was built as a youth or a teen product, and the information that it existed in the first place never made it upstairs or to other departments. Now, this is also on the people who make the buying decision, because oftentimes it is department heads and administration, because those things can cost thousands and millions of dollars. So it's up to them to think in broader terms and see the potential impact of library materials on different departments. So again, that should be a multi-person conversation to make sure that the information is disseminated and best put to use. And let us not forget programming. Now here's a case of thinking the wrong way. My library has a program categorization called General Audience, and I realized during the course of this class that my department in no way markets these programs anywhere in any other department. So there are brochures when you first come into the library, but that's it. All the rest of the information is only housed in adult. So, besides just marketing to everybody, say we rectified that and actually did put it everywhere, the information everywhere, you can actually work with other departments before a program to make sure that the information in it addresses the needs and interests of multiple user groups. One cooperative effort that was actually 2 classes that happened at the same time was a story time and an ebook class. The youth department had a youth program, a story time, that only involved the children, so the parents were always outside. And what we decided was to give an ebook class right there where the parents were waiting. Because if you didn't know, the number one recipient of e-readers are the parents of young children, specifically the mothers of young children, who tend to be the ones to bring them into story time. And they are one of the least groups. That group does not come up and ask for help. And oftentimes they don't even know that the ebooks from libraries exist, and they own the most e-readers, so it's kind of a natural combination. But that group, it took both departments to make this work. They never would have learned about it, or we never would have paired up if that conversation hadn't happened. And again, it doesn't just have to be youth and adult. Any department can find a shared topic of patron information and need and pull talent and knowledge to help each other out. Now, grants are a big one. Many grants will favorably consider awarding to libraries or projects that can demonstrate a broad spectrum application of the grant award. If you can demonstrate interdepartmental need and multi-patron base application, consider co-writing a grant with someone from another department. Besides, hopefully having the work, you get the perspective of the other's department, their different experiences, and then their differing knowledge base for the grant, which can only make it a richer document. Now, I know that you are spending years, literally, on a specific course of study in librarianism, but especially once you work in the field, this can potentially create tunnel vision, and this sounds bad, but like an overblown sense of importance about your particular bent. So get outside of yourself and your own comfort zone and go talk to others in others' departments. It'll be good for you and your patrons. Now we're going to look at some professional library associations. Now, I have an undergrad in medieval Renaissance studies in history, and whenever I see this, I can't help but think of guilds, the old guilds or associations, and there are a lot of similarities. I think I showed these the first week of class, but there are several national, regional, and state associations, library associations in the United States. There are even international ones, like IFLA, that's coming to Columbus later this year. Now, associations such as these serve as advocacy centers to local, state, and national agencies, and as well as just congregations of learning and opportunities for networking and other professional skill building. We're going to look at what some of the associations have to say about themselves about the benefits and opportunities provided for by their membership. Now, my own experience with the Ohio Library Council has included networking opportunities through workshops and conferences that are held throughout the year, and I've served on both the membership committee and I'm currently on the Reference and Information Services Division. Now, I was on the membership committee while I was still in school. It did not make a difference to them. These associations are generally interested in people who are interested in the subject, who are passionate about it. Now, how do you get into that, you may ask, especially if you haven't started networking or know somebody already active in the association? Well, you can call them, email them. And every organization, the one here is from ALA.org, will have a section about joining or volunteering for committees and the like. And if there wasn't an explicit page such as this, then each section will have a list of members whom you can contact for information about the division or committee and then what it takes to become a part of that group. Now, if this seems like a daunting first step to actually become a part of, say, like a committee or a subcommittee, any of those, I also really recommend volunteering. Now, even though those other things are volunteering, I'm talking about, volunteering at general functions and events. They're offering several things a year which require general dog's bodies to pull them off. Now, without incurring a large time commitment or a lot of responsibility, you're then able to see how the organization works in part. You can meet people from all over, and you kind of get your face and name out there, which is good for future jobs and future collaborations. And you also can ingratiate yourself to people who make decisions, and don't knock it. That kind of thing actually does work. And now let's talk about some of the more well-known associations that are out there that influence those working in the adult services field or the reference field. ALA is probably the largest and the most far-reaching one of these. Now, some of the ones I'm mentioning next are actually considered subsidiaries of the American Library Association. ALA offers an opportunity to connect with others via roundtable and online forums, and they also create situations at in-person events for people to meet. Now, ALA always has several projects, not the least of which are the annual conference, which rely upon libraries and individual librarians to offer presentations, webinar, materials, articles, and offer volunteer services. This offers many opportunities to share your knowledge and skills with the rest of the library world. Now, there are committees, subcommittees, divisions, and roundtables that have revolving membership in ALA. Here you can network and actively influence the profession, building your leadership and mentoring skills at the same time, or benefiting from those that exhibit such skills that you need. Now, all of those situations then give you access to a knowledge and skill base nationwide while allowing you to give back in the same kind of scale. And now we start getting into a more narrowed interest focus. This is Reference and Information User Services Association, hereby known unto you as RUSA. RUSA is geared towards library staff interested in all of this stuff. Does this look familiar? A very large part of this is stuff that we talked about in class. So this is, again, why I'm bringing it up in an adult materials class. So there's a reason I showed this one first. But if you were in this class, you probably have an interest in all, or at least, some if not most of these. And these will offer services, classes, forums, all sorts of opportunities to learn and connect with others on these topics. RUSA also, here is their, why join list. If you want to pause for a moment and go ahead and read over the list, you'll notice that it offers the same kind of, information that ALA offered as to why to join. I wanted to make sure to add this slide. There are a number of librarian positions out there that don't fall under the auspice of academic or public, and those are generally considered special libraries. Prison libraries, corporate, medical, law, all of those. But there is an organization for that one too, an association. And this is the Special Libraries Association, or the SLA. Now, associations are a place to pool resources, offer opportunities to learn from each other, and compile information and resources geared towards a specific subject. And one thing that all of these do, every single one of these, is offer continuing education opportunities to those in the library field. Continuing education is a good segue from the professional associations, as that is where some of the most benefits reach the most people. Workshops, symposiums, annual and chapter conferences, these rarely, if ever, require membership to attend, though they are usually offered at a discounted price to members. But this is one of the ways that the most people interact with the association, is at these learning opportunities. Now, different libraries, localities, states, and even associations have differing continuing education requirements for librarians, if any. But continuing education, which I'll now refer to as CE, is important for all fields of study, including librarianism, but maybe especially for librarians, since we are the purveyors and assistants to those seeking information on, anything. Case in point, take a look at this one picture. Now, I could talk about the 3 pieces of technology. I could look at this and use this as a basis of a talk on databases, social media, communication, Skype, Facebook, you name it. But here's a question. How many of those things would be a conversation piece or even exist 20 years ago? Now, you will meet people who have been in the field way longer than 20 years, but they know all this stuff. So, how did they learn about the changes, trends, and innovations, before they ever reached their library? Or did they? If they did, it was probably from their own coworkers, professional literature, which is usually produced by one of the associations, workshops, conferences, vendor demonstrations, not to mention, and this is the biggest part, their own interest and self-learning skills. Because no matter what with this continuing education, it starts with you, the individual. If you are not interested, no matter how good the teacher is, you're probably not going to learn. So, get interested. Librarians should be the poster children for lifelong learners. There are a variety of modes and means to learn new things. Now, some of them aren't offered by library agencies, but can still benefit you. So don't only look to library resources, such as associations or sometimes libraries will give them. But I've gone to Microsoft classes, I've gone to Apple classes, and I got to count them for continuing education credits. Now, if you do work at a library or location that belongs to an association that offers accreditation credits, make sure to mark such things down and keep record. And this is, I don't know how other states do it, for all of you who are in Ohio and either are members of OLC or are going to become members of the Ohio Library Council, make sure to mark down any kind of class or education opportunity that you attend, because those things, you have about 5 years to make 36 credits once you get accredited or get a certificate. So, the different ways. Workshops. Workshops will generally be hands-on and will take several hours or even days to complete. These focus on hard or soft skills, a hard skill having, say, a tangible result or outcome, and a soft skill being more about character traits and interpersonal skills. Now, these kind of workshops can include things like grant writing, first aid, and believe me, that benefits the patron, and other things that directly translate to your job. Classes. Now, don't groan at this one, grad students, but there might be a day when where you want to take a class online or in person on a subject that you feel a little iffy in so that you can better help people. Classes tend to be longer term affairs, and many libraries will pay for CE for their class for continuing education. If not, grants exist for this purpose all over the US. And don't forget the Friends of the Library groups, which exist both in academic, public, and special libraries. Personally, I have taken two 8 to 10 college week courses, one on adult learning and then the other on Somali, that have both been paid for by my friends group. I asked the person in charge, they had a little form that I filled out. I wrote a very pretty little proposal listing the long-term library/patron benefits, and they paid for it all. It was amazing. They just cut me a check. And here's the shameless plug, but see, writing counts. You will use it more often than you think, especially when you have a specific need. Now the other thing, another one is local, state, and national conferences, and this will probably by far be the way that most librarians gather continuing education credits, or this is the opportunity for them to learn. Now at these conferences, there are usually 45-minute to hour-long talks and demonstrations on a multitude of subjects. Now the choices available are often based on the theme of the conference, local needs and issues, current library trends, and then, not least, but they'll be based off of the things that people chose to present. Remember, it's individuals or just a few people who create something and then offer it at a conference. The conference agency does not point at people and say, you offer a program on customer service skills. So if you are currently attending such functions and are disappointed with the pickings, well, guess who has the opportunity to do something about it? And again, you do not have to have a degree to do this. I gave my first presentation at a conference when I was an undergrad. I wasn't even a member of OLC. They didn't even care. Now, these are the most frequently attended events, and these are also generally the closest and most affordable ones for most people to get to, especially if they have to pay for it themselves. Local ones, that is. Now, national conferences such as ALA, PLA, RUSA, and many more are usually multi-day events with a very broad spectrum of offerings. Now, I have posted the OLC chapter conference booklet, the program guide, that just ended last week, as well as the recent annual convention booklet from ALA in this week's content folder. Please take a moment and look through these and see the kind of things that are being offered to degreed professional librarians. Some of the offerings might surprise you. Now, webinars are one of the best ways to keep informed and up to date, especially if you aren't able to take the time to attend conferences or if money is a deciding factor. Most webinars are one-shots where you actually have to log in and participate, as you've witnessed through the recorded ones that you've watched for this class. But many organizations are now taking the time and the effort to record them, such as here, or the ones that you guys have been watching. This is so that they're able to offer the information not just to those 5, 10, 20 people who signed up, but to everybody who's a member or who needs the continuing education. Again, it's thanks to technology we're able to broaden out spreading around the information to those who need it. Now, another source of learning are vendors. Well, some of these might include, say, 3M, Microsoft, EBSCOhost, Overdrive, Novelist, and many more. And all of these who have people who do nothing but go around and train the staff of those who purchase their products. Now, I talked about this a bit before in an earlier lecture, but it bears repeating. They care whether or not you know how to use the product, especially the databases, the database people, because they work off of contracts and they want you to keep renewing the contract. So if you've ever looked at a database list, or as a student stopped using a database because it's too hard to use, you couldn't figure it out, Well, if you get that job, you're still gonna and still have the same issue. That might be a good time to, ask for the trainer to come in. And most of the time, they'll do it for free. And let us not forget the professional literature. Now, there's stuff produced online or in print, and this is done by those in the field. These can give you snippets of information, flesh out, inspire new ideas, and they can also pretty accurately reflect what's happening out there in the library world. And I love this method when I'm tired and don't want to go anywhere, or have missed the dates for programs, any of those, or just feel kind of out of the loop. This is, reading, passive learning at its best, but it's still learning. Now, there are endless things to learn that either have a direct tie into your job or the people you serve, or at least you can spin it that way. Actively seeking such opportunities or being the vehicle of change and information by offering any of these opportunities helps others, but it also, looks great on your resume and it looks good to your institution. Think about how many times you've heard people asking, like say during interviews, that they're looking for lifelong learners. Now, in librarianism, it's easy enough to think of that as, I read so many books, but oftentimes the employer is thinking of this in terms of professional application. So this plays a big part in their mind, that you are continuing to look at things specifically in librarianism, not just the kings and queens of England. So, remember, work with others and learn from them. Pull your skills and efforts and create better things than you could have on your own. Look out into the profession and see what associations are out there that exist purely to help people like you in your situation. And keep seeking new skills and information. Your education doesn't end when you leave Kent State. You're going to be librarians. The learning never ends, and I mean that in a good way. Okay. End of week 10. One paper to go. On a side note, if you have contacted me via email recently, but have not received an answer, I am sorry, and I am catching up. It looks as though most of you got added to my spam filter and were being dumped in there. So thanks to Anonymous for giving me a heads up on that. I thought you guys were just quiet. Now everyone, I hope you all leave this class with some new skills and a better understanding of what it means to work with adults in mind, whether it be in a public, academic, or special library setting. And in the future, please introduce yourself if we run across each other, say at conferences and the like. I would love to meet you in person. And everyone have a good week and happy finals.